Hello friends, it's Lydia, and for this vlog, we are going to be reading some brand new 2026 horror releases. So the two books that I'm definitely going to be reading for this vlog are The Caretaker by Kliewer and then Japanese Gothic by Kylie Baker. And the only reason I say that is because I have started both of these books already. I'm also hoping to get to You Should Have Been Nicer to My Mom and For Human Use, but we will see what happens. I might only get to one of those books, so no promises. All of these books are ones that I have been pretty excited to check out for this year. I just haven't had a chance to. So I thought a themed vlog would be fun, and hopefully I can get to all of these different books. But let's start first, before we get into the vlog, kind of checking in because I am about 50% of the way through Japanese Gothic. Japanese Gothic follows the story of Lee. His dad just moved to Japan with his girlfriend and is living in a house that he bought there. That's in the rural countryside. And Lee is kind of running away, trying to escape something that he did in America. So he comes to Japan to stay with his dad. And while he's there, it's kind of starting to reveal that there's something weird going on with the house. Flashback to the past in I think it's the 1870s. We are also following Zen. She is the daughter of a samurai. Her dad is one of the last samurais around, and he is really resisting the change in how the government is trying to strip him of his title and his nobility. He wants to have his family be warriors, but the only one who really is falling into line with his ideals is Zen. And I am just getting to the point where Lee and Zen's stories are starting to overlap, because yes, their stories do kind of merge. There is a portal because they are both staying in the same house, in the same room, and they are able to communicate. And yeah, it's interesting so far. I read Bat Eater by Kylie Baker, and I enjoyed that book. I don't think I liked it as much as some people did. It wasn't a perfect 5-star for me. However, the main issue that I had with Bat Eater and Other Names for Corazang was how supernatural it got. That type of horror just doesn't do it for me. I don't find it scary. I don't usually enjoy those types of stories. I don't know why. I think it's just, for me, it's too much of having to suspend my disbelief, and it feels more like a fantasy and less like a horror, which for me, I'm going to horror because I want to be scared. I want to have a bad time, and when it's ghost and stuff, it just doesn't do it for me. And Japanese Gothic is kind of falling into that same trap. However, I feel like it's even less so because in reality, there's some horrific things happening on both ends, like people being murdered, things like that. But I would say more than anything, it feels like a time travel story, and it's not bad. It's just, so far, it hasn't been very horrific. Now, like I said, I'm only 50% through the book, so there's possible that it gets more and more fucked up, and I kind of hope it does. And I will say that I think that plot-wise, there's just not been a whole lot there yet. So I'm curious to see how it pans out. I'm definitely sticking with it. I'm not having a bad time listening to it. So we'll see. We'll see. Right now, it's feeling like a 3-star. So yeah, that is my check-in for Japanese Gothic. I have also started The Caretaker, but I'm only 15% of the way through that book. So I kind of want to wait until I've read a more significant portion before I check in, but so far I've been enjoying it. I really liked We Used to Live Here, so I was definitely excited to check out Kliewer's next piece of work. I think what I loved about We Used to Live Here was just how liminal it felt, how strange the characters interacted. It felt really unpredictable, and I quite liked that. I am very excited to see if he kind of brings more of those elements into The Caretaker. But so far, it's kind of hard to tell where it's going to go. I'm only at the part where she's just taken the job and agreed to, be the caretaker or house sit for whatever is going on at this old man's house. And I'm trying not to have too high of expectations, just because We Used to Live Here was definitely my favorite read of 2024, and I just don't think The Caretaker is going to live up to that hype in my head, at least from the reviews that I've seen so far. I've been able to avoid spoilers, so I have no idea where the story is going to go, but I've been hearing such mixed reviews, anywhere from a 5-star down to 2 stars for some people. We're going to see where I fall, but so far I've been enjoying it. I like his writing style, and I do think he's really, really good at capturing anxiety. So yeah, I have some errands to run today. I'm gonna go take care of those. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to listen to more Japanese Gothic, and I will check in with you once I am closer toward the end, or maybe once I finish it. It kind of depends on if anything happens that I kind of want to check in with you about. Okay, so I finished Japanese Gothic. Yesterday was just kind of a work day for me. I was working on trying to finish a print that I've been designing. It's from Nope the movie, and I'm very happy with how it turned out, and I'm glad to finally have it done. And I'm also finally glad to be done with this book because honestly, it was just kind of meh. I wasn't necessarily a huge fan of the direction that the book went. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad book, I just think it wasn't for me personally. It's marketed as a horror, but it's definitely more of a literary, historical mystery thriller. And that convoluted tag that I made for it really kind of summarizes how this book felt. It just felt a little too bloated and like there were too many ideas that weren't fully fleshed out or connected thematically. And any horrific elements there were, they were definitely really forced and they were few and far in between. And I just felt like it was more there for the shock value rather than to say something about the plot. I think the biggest issue that I had personally was the time travel aspect. I found it to be really unbelievable, and some of the way that characters interacted just didn't really make sense to me. Like if you are someone who is living in the 1870s and you're suddenly in 2026, I feel like you would react a lot differently than the characters did in the book, but that's just me. I think Kylie Baker didn't really want to write a time travel story or like that fish out of water story, even though like it would make the most sense. I think she really wanted to focus on creating these two parallel stories that are on separate timelines that have a lot of mirrors for each other. And I think that's fine, and it could have worked if the characters had had a little bit more depth and a little bit more development. Both Lee and Sen as main characters don't really change much. Who we're introduced to is who they stay throughout the book. And I thought that there was going to be a lot more darkness and things revealed about them, but really they more or less become sympathetic, and any bad actions they did are understandable. For Sen, she's living in the 1870s, and her father is a samurai, and she is a woman. She doesn't really have autonomy. So the decisions that she's making, I don't feel like are necessarily like a conflict or things like that, because it's either she kills or gets killed herself. And there's not really an aspect of like, you feel like, oh, she's making a bad decision. It's like, no, it's understandable she's making these decisions because she's in survival mode. And same thing with Lee. I thought that his character was going to turn more into an exploration of somebody who struggles with drug abuse and what that could mean. But it's really more of a plot device, his drug addiction, because it's more of a way to justify why he doesn't remember things for plot convenience. And ultimately, the worst part about it is that I feel like we're supposed to care about these two characters and their somewhat relationship or friendship or whatever is going on between them, but I really just didn't. There's no deeper conversations they have with each other, no deeper connections made, to the point where it's like, I really didn't care about either of them individually, and I cared even less about them being together. I do see how the two timelines are somewhat connected. They both have absent mothers, they both have fathers who are kind of misogynistic, abusive assholes, and they are both characters who are really sad and lonely and really like, you feel bad for them. But I don't feel like that was enough to really tie them together, because there's just too many different types of commentary trying to go on. I think I don't know, it just felt not really concise in what it was trying to say. So yeah, not a bad book. Like I said, giving it 3 stars myself, but I think there's definitely an audience out there that's gonna love this book. If you're someone who is not into horror at all, I feel like this is definitely a horror book to try, because it's not very scary. And if you like historical fiction, you know, it's really gonna mesh with that. Just for me personally, it's not really my taste, and I feel like I'm gonna forget about it and not think about it again. I did find it interesting because last night I watched Harakiri, which for those of you who don't know is a 1962 Japanese film about a samurai who arrives at a lord's house and asks if he can commit harakiri. Harakiri is the practice where they would do an honorable suicide, where they would disembowel themselves rather than be killed by the enemy or by poverty or whatever it was. I just think it was interesting that I watched that last night right after I finished reading Japanese Gothic, because both of them dealt with samurais, both of them had featured harakiri, and both of them are kind of critiques of samurais. In our modern day media, samurais are very much praised and idolized and seen as these honorable figures, but in reality, there was a lot of brutality. There was colonization. There was things going on that actually shows that their honor system was a little bit messed up. And both harakiri and Japanese Gothic are really interested in exploring that conversation. I do think harakiri did it better, but I feel like it's unfair to compare the two because they're completely different mediums and genres. I just thought it was interesting how they kind of both were very similar thematically, and I watched one and read the other yesterday. So that was just interesting to me. And I also have an update for Caretaker because last night I hit the 50% mark. The Caretaker follows a girl named Macy who is financially responsible for her younger sister Gemma, and she is struggling financially, doesn't have the money to pay rent, really desperate at this point because she also can't find a job. So she goes to Craigslist, finds a listing for a caretaker, applies, and they actually call her back even though she has no qualifications for it. When she goes in for the interview, she finds out that this really isn't a normal caretaking position. Rather than taking care of a person, you're taking care of the property and performing these rituals every night that the owner is following from her dead husband. It's a little convoluted, but I think that Marcus Kliewer is really good at like easing you into these weird like concepts and things and slowly revealing more and more information. That's something I really liked when we used to live here, that yes, it was confusing, but we feel really grounded in the characters' interactions. Like we're following them through, oh, I did this, then I did this, then I did this. And it really helps create a linear timeline that we are slowly going with the characters and exploring this strange environment. And I feel like the Caretaker has also had that same like structure that I really appreciate, especially because there's some weird things going on. At the 50% mark, we are just getting to the point where creepy things are starting to happen. Macy, has shown up to the house, has been watching it and following the rituals, and they're really simple things like make sure the lights are off, make sure the doors are locked. And it's fascinating because I think it really is a great analogy for like what OCD is like, which Macy, I don't think that she has OCD. It's in this environment. She's creating these rituals and things are slowly starting to take over her mind. It's hard to explain, but I'm very interested to see where it goes. I am creeped out. I was reading some last night while I was in bed and getting the heebie-jeebies, so I had to, put it down. And yeah, we'll kind of see where it goes. I'm surprised that I'm liking it, but I feel like I like his writing style enough, and I like his characters, and I like his concepts. I love some weird, doesn't make sense, backroom style horror. Like, it's very fascinating to me. So yeah, that is my check-in. Today is kind of another work day for me, so I'm gonna be working on some new designs. I need to get out my sketchbook and start brainstorming and getting some things done because I have a show coming up later on this month, and I need to get these things done. So I'm gonna lock in, and I might use the audiobook for the Caretaker, at least for a little bit, just so I can keep reading because I wanna know what happens. So I will be back when I have finished it. So I just got a package from Notebook Therapy. I went ahead and took the plastic off, but I haven't opened it yet. So I'm gonna pop it open. This is going to be my 2027 reading journal / media journal. And oh my gosh, there it is. I'm so excited. I had to order it kind of early because I am going to start doing setup here in the next couple months and posting videos ahead of time. Last month I waited till January to start setting up, and it ended up taking a lot longer than I expected. So I'm going to try to get a head start on it and space it out a bit more this year. But oh my gosh, it looks so cute. I love this design. Oh, the stars are so cute. I'm not sure how I feel about the texture. It's not too bad, but it's like a velvety texture that I'm not a super huge fan of, but luckily I'm not going to really be touching the cover too much, mostly working within it, so it'll be fine. But yeah, I'm so excited. So I finished The Caretaker this morning. Last night I was reading it in bed on my Kindle. And I fell asleep while I was reading it. So I finished it up this morning. I only had a few chapters left, and yeah, I loved it. I was really surprised by how much I ended up liking it. And as soon as I finished it, of course, I went on Goodreads just to kind of see what people were saying about it. I don't really use Goodreads much, but I still go on there to read reviews because I feel like that's where a lot of people post their reviews. And oh my gosh, I am surprised by like how split I feel like people are about this book. There are people who really liked it and people who didn't. So I'm glad I fell into the camp of really liking it. I feel like I've had a lot of misses recently, so I needed a good win and a good book, especially something that's kind of actually scary, because this book did scare me. A lot of the stuff that's happening is very mundane, very like slow paced, but I feel like that slow buildup of stuff really works for me. And that is also what worked for me with We Used to Live Here by Marcus Kliewer. I think that the books are actually supposed to be connected somehow, like the lore of the world is connected, not necessarily like the storyline. So I am interested to see what else he comes up with and if he continues expanding this like cosmic horror universe that I feel like he's creating. I definitely understand people being really frustrated with our main character. She is someone who can't do anything right. She has a lot of intrusive thoughts, a lot of mental health issues, and just some people were saying that it's like a pity party. And I feel like when you're inside the character's mind, because this is a first person point of view, I think it's really hard to like vibe with that unless you kind of relate with the character or you kind of click with the character. And I understand, I feel like that writing's choice was probably really alienating for a lot of people, just because like they're like inside this girl's mind and they're just like, girl, get it together. And perhaps I've just watched too many horror movies at this point, but I can definitely suspend my disbelief for like people making those dumb decisions, like standard, don't go in that room, you know? And there is some like meta acknowledgement of this within the text, where there's kind of like the internal monologue of her sister being like, you're so stupid. Why are they opening the door? Don't they know that they're gonna get killed? Blah, blah, blah. And those types of like commentary kind of makes it a little fun. You can kind of recognize that like her dumb decisions, yeah, they're dumb. She knows they're dumb. I even saw people saying that the representation of mental health was really inaccurate, damaging, not good, those types of things. And first of all, I just want to say like good representation is very like subjective. I found it really relatable, so maybe that says something about me and my mental health, but I did find her whole situation, all of her inner thoughts, her compulsions, her intrusive thoughts, like that was very relatable to me. And maybe that's, you know, a very personal thing that some people feel and some people don't. But yeah, that's just me. I liked it. I'm giving it a 4.5. It's all about opinions and what you're looking for in a book. I think for me, I love being creeped out. I love feeling unsettled. I love feeling anxious. Anyways, I started working yesterday on my perfect blue print that I've kind of had building in my mind for a little bit here. I got stuff on my sketchbook. I started sketching on my iPad, but I do want to start working on cleaning up and finalizing that sketch today. But before I do that, I do need to go to the library and go grocery shopping. So I have stuff to do today. But the next book that I'm going to read on audiobook to start with while I do all my chores and things is For Human Use by Sarah G. Pierce. I am interested in this one. I believe that it's supposed to be a little bit more humorous because it's supposed to follow people dating corpses. I'm not really sure how the science of this is all going to work, so we shall see. And hopefully I vibe with it because I did buy a copy because my library didn't have it, but I am also able to access the audiobook on Spotify. So I have a few hours left, so I can probably use that for some of it, but otherwise gonna read it physically, mostly tonight. Let's see how much I get done. So I will check in with you when I'm about the 50% mark, or at least a third of the way through For Human Use. Hi to the babies. Oh, the babies. Hi to the babies. So it has been like 2 days since I checked in with you. I impulsively, like yesterday, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to the pool in the morning and, you know, read. But then I came back and instead of filming, because I looked really gross and disgusting and everything, I was like, you know what's a great idea right now? Go through my entire office closet and start organizing that. And that ended up being like a 2-day project. So that was what I've been up to. I did get about 100 pages read For Human Use while I was at the pool. And I will talk about it a little bit, go ahead and check in with you. But before we do that, last night my husband and I went to go see I Want Your Sex in theaters because it's having like its limited run right now, and it was so good. So it follows Olivia Wilde's character, who is this older artist who all of her art is very much about sex and relationships and that type of stuff. And the younger intern, played by Cooper Hoffman, who comes and works for her, and they start like basically like a BDSM type of relationship. It's really messy. It really plays with like power dynamics, like where the ethical line is drawn as far as like kink and consent go, and is an exploration of like this like really interesting character that Olivia Wilde plays. So I loved it. It also has a lot to say about the Gen Z purity culture and how opposed to sex so many younger people are, and kind of explored that a little bit. And yeah, I found it really good. It wasn't like a new all-time faves. I think I gave it like a 3.5, but it was fun. I feel like those smaller films like that, even though they'll be in theaters for like a week, people don't ever really talk about them or know about them. Everybody else is so excited to go see the new Spider-Man movie. I'll be honest, I have not kept up with any of the Spider-Man movies, so I have no idea what's happening, so I couldn't even go see it if I wanted to. So yeah, I Want Your Sex was the one I was excited to see this weekend, so that was fun. But yeah, I'm about 100 pages into For Human Use. And what do I have to say about this book? So For Human Use, it's following a man named Todd who works at an investment firm. I believe he's like the accountant person. Like, they don't really say, but it's kind of implied through like his job description that that's what he's doing. Also have a point of view of Auden, who is the person who invented this startup called Live, where people are able to get matched up with cadavers. So basically you're swiping on different cadavers that you think, oh, like that one's attractive. I don't know what you're looking for when you're on this app, but you pick one and then they deliver it to you. So they make it sound like it's Tinder, like a dating app, but it really is more of a shopping app, since I'm assuming you only buy one cadaver. It's not really explained. There's a lot of things that aren't explained in here, and a lot of like interesting writing choices so far. But yeah, I think our main point of view character is supposed to be Todd. He's in the investment firm, and his firm has decided to invest money into this app called Live. He's having a lot of moral dilemmas about this, because he's thinking that this is really akin to necrophilia. Like, why are people wanting these bodies? Like, what are they doing with them? How is this legal? He has a lot more pushback, and everybody else is acting like this is like a completely normal idea. So I feel for Todd, and I am glad that we're in the point of view, or at least having some character that is showing like a moral objection to it, because it is a very strange concept. It's also interesting because the whole dating a cadaver thing is really misleading, because most of these people aren't dating them. They just have a cadaver in their house, and the whole pull of it is that like it's a different experience to be around death is kind of the idea, and most of them aren't having relations with their, corpse that they have ordered online. I don't really understand how this is becoming like a fad in their world. It is definitely like something that is appealing to the younger generation and stuff like that. So there's a lot of ethical concerns about 15-year-olds ordering a cadaver off of, this app. Interestingly, kind of ties back into I Want Your Sex, because they're both talking or having conversations about young people's hesitancy to get into an actual relationship. I don't know if I'm liking it though. So far, we're kind of at the point where the investment's happening, the company's getting evaluated, and it's being evaluated for billions of dollars, even though Todd, who, because he's on the accounting side, knows that that's like not an accurate representation of like what the company's worth, and he's digging much more into like what is going on here. Part of it's kind of revealed like maybe there's more to meet the eye as far as this company goes, and like I said, we are also getting Auden's point of view, and he is the man who invented the company, and he's very seems very egotistical, a little weird. And then the POV that we just got introduced to is actually Auden's girlfriend Mara, who also happens to be his stepsister. So hopefully that's like not too spoilery. Like I said, this is all like in the first like 100 pages or so, and I feel like you can kind of deduce that. I don't want to give it all away unless it's really bad, because so far I don't know if I'm really buying into the concept. I think that if it was just playing into the absurdity of it, I would be more on board, but it is questioning these ideas. Like, it's questioning how something like this is allowed to happen. But I definitely thought that it was going to be more focused on somebody falling in love with someone who was dead. That's kind of the vibe I got. But so far, both of our point of view characters, and now Mara, all of them are more interested in people who are living. They're not really concerned with like the dead people outside of like, is this ethical? Do I want to do this? Or in Auden's case, can I make money off of doing this? The other thing that has kind of stopped me from like getting any further than this, even though I've been working on this for a few days now, is the writing style. I've been starting to like just like dog ear the page. I know, dog earing, kill me, sorry. It's one of my like horrible book things when it's a paperback. I love dog earing a paperback. Getting back to the writing style, there's just a lot of interesting phrases and like how Sarah Pierce is choosing to kind of write this. Let me see if I can find the example here. A young lift staffer, old enough to order a beer, but not to rent a car, ran up tomorrow eagerly. So they're 22. So they're 21, 22 is what you're saying. Like just say early 20s. And a lot of the turns of phrases are just so interesting, structuring a sentence the way like I wouldn't think to structure it, or like not in a common way that I would have read, and not necessarily in a way that makes it like a difficult, dense read, because I would not say this is a difficult or dense. There's also like a lot of like analogies or like metaphorical stuff that is added into the text. For instance, this is like on page 66. There's kind of a flashback happening with Tom because he does have like some traumatic stuff that happened in his past and like his first marriage. We're kind of exploring that. I don't want to like get into all of the details and stuff because I feel like that gets into this more spoilery territory and stuff that's like not in the blurb. Basically, we're kind of exploring that, and then all of a sudden we jump from like one location to the next location, which I'm like, okay, here we are. But I'm like, maybe break this up with different chapters, different like the little spacing breaks that they put in there, like something like that would make more sense to me, because there's not even like a paragraph or something that helps it flow into the next. And then there is kind of a reference made to a python, which I don't know if it's meant to be literal, like they talk about having a python in his apartment, but there's no like snake or python imagery happening in this chapter. There was some python imagery happening like a few chapters back, which I'm wondering if they're trying to pull that back in. It just felt like really out of place. But like the python imagery, even in this context, doesn't make sense because they were referring to women being pythons. And in this case, it's talking about something else. I don't know. I'm having a hard time maybe like just deciphering like what we're trying to do with the writing here. So I think part of that has made it really difficult for me to like even listen to the audiobook. Like I tried listening to just like the first chapter or two on audio and it was not working for me. And maybe now that I'm a little bit more used to the writing style, I could go back to the audio and try it. Gonna keep going just because at this point, like, I bought the book, I want to get through it, and if it is really bad, I might have to rant and give spoilers, but so far it's just going to be kind of, and I'm not really sure where it's going or what's happening, and I feel like the whole focus right now, like on the corporate stuff, is fine, but it makes me wonder, why are we even having this whole cadaver dating thing? Is that just the hook? Are we actually going to explore somebody being in that relationship, or like what that actually means? Or was that just the enticing thing to get people in to read this book that might be more about, you know, corporate corruption and stuff like that? Also, I'm really curious to know what like the rom-com aspect of it. If it's what I'm predicting, I am not on board with it because I hate all the characters so far. So if it's the two characters I think who are going to have like a romantic thing going on, I'm going to be pissed because I hate them. I'll check in when I'm probably, you know, a little bit more through it, just because I am making such slow progress on it and I hate waiting really long to update. My sister's coming into town this weekend with her boyfriend, so I think all of us are going to be going out to eat and I don't know, doing anything else, so that's probably going to take you most of my time. So I'm just going to enjoy my weekend, read if I have a chance, but if not, it might not be till like Monday when I check in with you. So yeah, I will see you then. So it has been a few days since I've checked in with you, but I did finally finish For Human Use. And the reason why it's taken me a while is because this book was such a drag to get through. Now, I think when I initially checked in with you, I was kind of interested to see where it was going. Like, it was definitely more focused on the establishment of the company. And it's a lot of like corporate, you know, stuff going on. And I was intrigued. I wasn't super captivated by that. That's not my favorite thing to read about. But I was interested to see where it was actually going to go with this concept. And if the concept was actually going to mean anything. And I'm going to be real, I don't think that it mattered, because part one, because there's 3 different parts throughout this book. They're like part 1, part 2, part 3. Part 1, where it's all getting established, is the most interesting part of the book. After that, it falls off. There's a romance aspect, but there's also like a lot of interpersonal stuff going on, and I just did not care. I'm gonna be bashing on this, so if you're at all interested in reading this and don't want any spoilers whatsoever, I would definitely skip this section. Honestly, the whole concept of why literally the tagline, modern dating is dead, like that is not really even explored, because our romance that we are following are two people who are like instantly attracted to each other and want to be together, and we don't actually get to see them struggle with modern dating in any way, shape, or form. I guess like our main character Tom, he does have like some stuff in his past that kind of messes it up, but the moment he meets Mara, because spoiler alert, him and Mara get together and it's a romance, it's really more of a romance story between the two of them, kind of like instantly together, everything clicks perfectly, there's no issues and there's nothing really to overcome other than the fact that like all the live drama is going on, like protesting for dead bodies, not like, oh, that they shouldn't be used, but protesting that dead bodies are like a right that everybody has a right to. I guess like I thought at some point we were actually going to have a character who is using the service, who's actually in that mindset, and we never really do. We are always in the minds of people who think that it's weird, who aren't really interested in it, who are just more like benefiting from that system. And I think that could be an interesting exploration, but this book was more focused on the interpersonal romance of it all. Tom as a character is fine. Like, I think that they did an okay job writing him, but he was not interesting. Like, he's just like a white dude in tech, like a 40-year-old dude in tech. I'm sorry, that's not super interesting to me. He didn't really have any qualities that set him apart, but at least he had some characterization. Auden, on one hand, is definitely the most interesting character, but he's also the least developed, because by the time the second part of the book starts happening, Auden's point of views become completely like non-existent. He stops being really a driving character at all. All he's there for is conflict, because Auden is Mara's stepbrother slash ex-boyfriend. So they have like a history together, and like that's really where the drama is. That's where the storyline is more exploring how are you able to cope with dating someone who has like a messy past. In Mara, you would think with all the stuff that's happened in her past, the complicated situation that she's had with Auden, that she would be more of an interesting character. She's basically a non-character throughout the entire book. The most developed characters are men, and then the one girl that they're fighting over is completely like no characterization whatsoever. They literally make a joke in the book how she's Tom's, I mean, it doesn't matter, she's both of their manic pixie dream girls. Okay, like you acknowledge it, you kind of make a joke about it, like she's, oh, like you were seeing her as like not a character, it's just someone there to fulfill your wants and wishes, but she is a manic pixie dream girl. That is literally what she's in the book. You could make a joke about it, but that doesn't make it not true, because at no point do we really even learn much about her. She's a character who doesn't have very many ambitions in life. Her reactions make almost no sense. I don't get why she was interested in Tom at all whatsoever. I guess like maybe she's just into older guys. Like is that the plot line here? Because there is some stuff that happened in the past with her stepdad, and it's like really brushed over. Sorry, I feel like I'm ranting. I'm really angry. This book, it just made me so mad. Since I finished it yesterday, I have just been nonstop telling my husband, like, I hate this book. I hate this book. I hate this book. And he's just like, yeah, I know you do. You did not want to finish it. I should have DNF'd it, but for the sake of this video and to give people a comprehensive view about what this book is about, I finished it. I was really curious why nobody had been talking about this book, because the premise is really interesting. Gonna be right up horror girlies alley, because it's like a pink horror book, right? It makes sense why nobody's talking about this. I think there is a crowd of people who are gonna like a book that has kind of a weird idea, kind of strange, but is more focused on the romance. I'm not someone who really reads romance. I have nothing against the genre. Every so often I will pick up a romance book, but I do think that there would be people who would like it. But the biggest issue is that this book, I don't understand what it's trying to say, like politically at all, or with its themes. On the one hand, you have something that is trying, I think, to be a critique of the tech industry and corporate America, and I think that's the element that it did do the best. But on the other hand, there was a lot of stuff in here that just kind of made me like icked out. When it comes to using Live, the majority of the users are young people, like young people who are maybe influencers, are using dead bodies for content. There's also people who are under the age of 18 who are using their parents' like accounts in order to get dead bodies. And it kind of creates a culture of people who are very much obsessed with the dead and don't really see an issue with it. Like they have almost no understanding as to like why this would even be problematic, or they've started to create like movements that see living with the dead as a right. I think there can be like a conversation here, but the author really went the route where it was just more like, these dang kids, you know, kids these days and their social medias, and they always care about stuff that's not relevant, blah, blah, blah. It really felt like it was poking fun at like the younger generation of people who do care about social issues and fight about that and tweet about that and things like that. Yes, there's always pockets of the internet where people go way too far. You know, there's a lot of nuance to this conversation, and there is like nuance to the fact that like, you know, more and more Gen Z are becoming, you know, conservative and things like that. But this wasn't really about that. It was more about like poking fun at people who care about things, young people who care about things. Kids these days don't, you know, blah, blah, blah. I found it to be a really mean-spirited critique of younger people without any substance or actual nuance. In the context of this world and what they're arguing about, like they don't actually engage with it. So I guess part of it is that the concept of dating dead bodies is never really taken seriously by the author. Therefore, all of the interactions that all the characters have with people who do want to date dead bodies is not taken seriously or actually explored. The other thing that was really weird about this was there was like a grooming whole situation going on, and it's really pushed back or like glossed over, or like it's the girl's fault, or like she wanted it. They're trying to villainize Auden, who sees this situation as someone was being groomed and, you know, this is bad. And then the person who got groomed is like, no, I wasn't. Like, I was 16, but I wanted it. And we're supposed to see Auden as the crazy one because he's not respecting the victim's wishes. I understand that Auden did bad things in that situation and that the victim like deserves to process it however she wants to process it. But no, like Auden's right, like it was grooming. Like a 16-year-old cannot consent to having a relationship with a 40-year-old. I can't really understand what the author was trying to do with that whole storyline. This is kind of backed up by other stuff that happens, you know, in the plot earlier on. I think that the author was really annoyed with Me Too, that things like, you know, sexual assault are taken seriously, and that women, you know, fight back a little bit because it's a real issue in our society. You know, powerful men have been, you know, called out for this. I think the author was a little bit annoyed by that. I think the author is annoyed by the fact that like somebody's career can be ruined because of their misconduct. Now, I'm saying I feel like that's a rarity. Like I feel like it's rare for someone to actually face consequences for their actions. So I don't really understand where this critique is coming from. But there is even a line where they're talking about like consent. Basically like unless someone explicitly says something, and it was almost like it was an annoying thing. It was like making these like jokes about it. I don't know. I just got like weird vibes from it. I didn't really think that any of the conversations it was having was particularly interesting. It had no real horrific scenes. I think this should be classified as a romance, not a horror. You could take out the entire dead body thing and just make it a complete, like it could be replaced with some other tech startup that's slightly controversial, and the plot of the story would stay the same. Anyways, I feel like that was just like a total rant. I don't know if any of that made sense, but I was just not having a good time with that. I'm giving it a 1.5 because I feel like even 2 stars is too much. I think if the book would have been maybe even a little bit better written, it maybe would have been like a 2, but considering some of the conversations it was having and just how disappointing of a read this was, and yeah, it's done. We're done. Anyways, now that I got that out of my system, let's talk about You Should Have Been Nicer to My Mom, because I am about 100 pages in and I've been enjoying it so far. It's not really blown me away as far as like, you know, everything going on, but compared to what I got done reading, you know, for human use, this is like a breath of fresh air. The plot setup is that a young girl, she is, you know, in her early 20s, and she does not get along with her mom's side of the family at all, mostly because they were horrible horrible to her mom. Her grandfather just died, so she has to meet up with them at his house in order to like read his will out and find out, what the inheritance situation is going to look like. So far, not much has really happened past that. There's been a lot of, exposition set up, which makes sense because this is a pretty large cast of characters. And there was just a lot that had to be established in order to get us to the driving force of the plot, which is when they go to read the will, they find out that their grandpa is accusing someone in the family of being a demon, and they don't know who it is. They want to find the real will because, everybody wants to know what the inheritance thing is. So the lawyer's like, okay, I'm going to go back to the office, see if we have, something else on file. And there's a storm going on, so it's kind of preventing them from leaving the house while they're, stuck here waiting. And yeah, that's where we are right now. There's been some secrets revealed, some stuff revealed about the family that's, kind of, shocking. Our main character, she's kind of wondering, hey, is this what he's talking about? That there's secrets being hidden, that these people are not who they seem. Is the demon actually real, or is it metaphorical? We haven't really gotten many answers yet, but we are starting to get into the actual meat of hopefully some spooky stuff happening. So I will let you know once I finish this because it is pretty short. I've been enjoying it so far, easy to read, kind of working through it. I'm going to probably turn on the audiobook because I have some artwork to get done today and I need to lock in and do that. So yeah, I will check in with you when I finish this. Okay, so I finished You Should Have Been Nicer to My Mom, and it was, it was fine, I guess. It wasn't really for me, I think. It's very much thrillery, there is supernatural elements, but I would say that they don't really play like a huge role. And it kind of gets to the point where I don't even know why the supernatural elements were added. I feel like it really didn't add anything to the plot other than, I guess, like the mystery, but there was also like a human element going on as well. I don't really want to spoil it in case you are interested in picking it up. But yeah, I feel like we could have done without the supernatural because it was just so haphazardly thrown into there. And that's just my personal taste. So at the end of the day, that's just kind of where I landed with this book. I promise I'm not trying to be a hater. I just kind of naturally am. I tend to be very critical of stuff. I intended to read these and love them. Like, that's always my intention, is I'm trying to pick up a book that I think that I will actually like. I feel like maybe I'm too nitpicky, but there's just so many things that I can kind of like piece apart in this that hindered my enjoyment of it outside of just the plot itself. Because the plot by itself on this really isn't that bad. There's a few things, but it's more or less the fact that it just wasn't executed very well. It felt very repetitive after a point. I think the last time I checked in with you, I kind of talked about how, a secret was revealed and, people are freaking out. And it basically happens over and over again. Somebody has a secret, somebody in the family, it's revealed, they freak out. And it just felt like every single scene was someone running into a room, they're yelling at each other, then they run out of the room. Like, I swear, these bitches could not stay in a single room for like more than 5 seconds. And it just made the reading experience feel very repetitive and not like in a fun way. This is a short book and it made it feel like it drags. And I think that if this had a tighter editing to it, it could have worked a lot more. I saw a lot of people compare this to, Knives Out, which I think is kind of an apt comparison because a similar idea, an inheritance up for grabs, someone's guilty, things like that. The difference is that movie is fun. This is very one-dimensional. It feels very cluttered. Too much is going on. Like I said, the house feels very big. The family feels too big. It just all feels like too much stuff is going on that nobody really gets time to shine. The other thing too, kind of getting back to like talking about editing, was that I noticed multiple typos while I was reading this. That like bothers me. I'm sorry. Like, there was one point where the word one was missing the E at the end. There was like an extra of in there. And that was just when I was reading physically, because I did listen to this a little bit. And that gets me to my next point. The audiobook is absolutely horrible. The audiobook narrator, she has like no incantation in her voice, it just sounds so bad. Like, if you were just listening to this, like, I would have had such a hard time knowing which character is which character, because they all have the same voice and there's really not a lot to differentiate them. So anytime I was listening to the audiobook, it was horrible, but I was trying to get this book done so I can get this vlog done. So I was kind of doing other things, but I preferred reading it physically. So I definitely say, if you're interested in this book, read it physically, because the audiobook is not good. The other thing that bothered me was the formatting. So there is multiple kind of mixed media elements in this. We have the letter from the grandpa, we have his will, and then there's also some cassette tapes that come up later, and each one's kind of formatted a little differently. There's like two main ways that they're formatted. They're either like italics, or they're smaller paragraphs with like a different type of font. And I don't know how they decide which one's what. I just wanted them all to be consistent. That really bothered me as well. I know that sounds stupid, but there's like a point where we're listening to the same cassette. It's the same cassette tape. One page, it's in italics. The next page, literally right next to it, it's in a smaller paragraph with a different font. And I was like, come on, let's just have some consistency. It just felt like this didn't have the best editing, didn't have the best formatting, didn't have the best audiobook. So I don't know. I just felt like there wasn't like a lot of love or time put into this book. And I think you can feel that in the characters. Like, I don't know what went on in the production of this book, but like, that's just the vibe I got from reading it. And if a publishing company doesn't want to take the time to like actually edit their books and make them like formatted correctly or have consistent formatting, then I feel like I'm allowed to rate it 2.5 stars. Like, sorry. You know what, though, while I'm on my hater train, I am going to talk about another thing that bothered me during this book, and that was the author's note. Now, I'm fine with an author's note, especially if it's like to elaborate on like the themes they were exploring, yada yada yada. The author literally was like, you know, talking about, first of all, because this book is about a Dominican family, you know, it's talking about how like Dominican people have been racist and xenophobic towards Haitian people. Like, there's like a lot of history there, and I think that's fine to like elaborate in on an author's note. I think that's like what you should be elaborating on. That part was fine. The issue that I had was that at the very end of the author's note, the author basically said, oh, and by the way, Xiomara, you know, our main character, she's also in the wrong. Yeah, I know. I read the book. You know, I'm not stupid. I read the book. I saw what Xiomara did and how she acted, and I know that she's in the wrong. She's a very not like a great person, you know, like, I got it. You don't need to clarify that for me. So I thought that was a little weird. That made me like literally take it from like a 3 to, it's like, you know what? Now all these small things, 2.5. That's where I'm at. I'm done hating. I'm done. I am moving on to new books, not thinking about these anymore. And yeah, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope that you've enjoyed and you liked hearing me have a horrible time. If you liked these books, just know that's great. I'm glad you liked them. And if you hate books that I love, just know that's great too. You know, sometimes you need to hate something, and I think that should be allowed. So let me know what new releases you've been enjoying, what new releases you're looking forward to. I would love to hear. Don't forget to subscribe for more bookish movie journal content. And thank you so much. Have a great one. Bye.